So I just want to say welcome to everyone that's joined us today. Welcome back if you managed to attend any of the ones before the summer. The response we got was great, and we really love putting them on, and we're really excited to get this going again. Moving forward, these will be on a sort of a fortnightly basis, and we've got sort of speakers lined up until sort of the new year, so we're really excited about this series of talks. But to relaunch it after the summer, we're really lucky to have Jan to speak. He's a graduate from AC who's heavily involved in philanthropy and has a consultancy for it. So just want to say thank you, Jan, for agreeing to speak today and for coming and joining us. A couple sort of housekeeping things. For anyone joining us, if possible, to rename yourself so we know who's attending today, and if possible, to let us know where you're attending from. That'd be brilliant, whether it's sort of you're an AC alum, a member, an alum from another UWC, or sort of just someone else within the sort of UWC community. The sort of format of today's talk will be sort of about a 15-minute talk from Jan, followed by a Q&A section. All in, the event should last about an hour. If you have any questions during the talk or after, please do just pop them in the chat along the bottom, and we'll be able to get back to them as soon as Jan's finished. We'll unmute you so you can ask your question. Our hope is to sort of engage in a really sort of good debate and good talk after the presentation. With that, I'm going to hand over to Jan. But thank you for joining us today, and we hope you enjoy.
Okay, thanks very much, Keith. Welcome all of you. I'm very happy to see so many faces from Amsterdam. It's the first day in about 5 days that it's not raining, so I think that is your influence to give us some reasonable weather in this city. It is amazing to see so many of you showing interest in a talk about money. So that doesn't happen often. If we talk about philanthropy and about fundraising, people usually leave the room. So I'm very happy you're still there, and I hope you will enjoy. And please do give me as honest and as challenging questions as you can think of. Like quite a few of you in the audience, I was, that's a long time ago, 75, 77, AC, very, very happy to receive a scholarship, of course. And at that time, I don't know what it is in your time, I can't see all the age differences, but it was, my main thing was to have a beach rescue day. That was my dream. So I'd be in a canoe all day, and I even built my own canoe. So that's something which I remember very well from that time. I don't think I was very aware of the ideals and the philosophy of UWC, to be very honest. And the reason why you don't see any books behind me, because I also was not a great reader. So I was more of a sportsman in those days. I even had my first love affair. I don't know whether she's in the audience. She probably leaves instantly when I say this. But it was a great time, and I have very, very fond memories. In the years ever since 77, I have remained up and down involved in UWC. And the reason why I'm saying this is because often people say, wow, what did you do? You were a treasurer of the National Committee, and you helped setting up a school. And for me, this honestly all came pretty natural. The main reason was that, and that is something which I think if I remember exactly what my best time and what it did to me, is that it gave me a magic opportunity. And the only reason why I myself have remained involved in all those years with ups and downs, because sometimes your private life, your business life doesn't allow you time, is that I really truly believe that if you, in this case me, ever had a chance and got a scholarship, I think there's only one goal in life: give as many others the same opportunity. So that's, I think, the main reason why I'm talking to you today. If you look at the figures today, and now I'm going to scare you, I think, or surprise you certainly, is the numbers of UWC alum at Atlantic College are 9,000 in total. Out of those 9,000, the college only has contacts with 6,000. And now is a question to all of you. From those 6,000, what percentage do you think, and I'm going to be quiet for a little while, think of what percentage you believe is contributing to any fund or any time, be it in-kind donations or money. Just think of it for one split second. What percentage of the 6,000 of who the college are in contact with do contribute at all? The figure is, and it really surprised me on the negative side, 15%, 14.9. So that is something to talk about, I think. At least something I would like to talk to you about today, because I honestly believe that percentage is far too low. The people giving in kind is 2% of the 6,000 alum. And that is not to be compared to other schools. I will now boast a bit about the Netherlands United World College Committee. In the 80s, 90s, we managed to get a 70% score on scholarship contribution of alumni contributing to a fund. That was our high time. I think these days it's about 30%, so still far too low. So in fact, my main question to you all is, and that's what I would like to discuss and to talk about with you, how can we all jointly together, it's a joint effort, I believe, try and raise the awareness and jointly increase the involvement with the United World College, because every alum I've ever talked to, and I've talked to quite a few, like all of you have, and I asked, so what was your time like? Oh, it was fantastic. It was my magic time. This is what I really liked in my life. 2 years, 16, 17, 18, best years of my life, sometimes here. So if you then ask, would you like to give someone else the opportunity like you had? Of course. And if you then compare that to a 15% contribution to a fund, something doesn't go right. Now I will move for a while to a broader description of philanthropy. As Keith said in the opening statement, I am working now in the philanthropic world. I started doing that at the age of 42. I first was working in corporate life, Shell, KLM, and then not from one day to the other that I started to struggle with the following question, and what do I do? What do I do to change anything at all? And what do I nu gaat er iets fout. Hello? Yes, I'm back. Sorry, it was a phone ringing. So what do I do myself and how do I contribute to a better world? And I couldn't really give a honest answer, at least not a satisfying answer. So then I decided to go after my passion. My passion at that time was, after a corporate career, working for philanthropy, because I worked in quite a few as a volunteer, boards of foundations, of cultural, educational institutions, etc. Anyway, I started the company and I started working in the philanthropy world. And I honestly believe that in your life, it would be a great thing if you can manage to learn, earn, return. And for some people, that is different time frames. It took me quite a while to pass my final exams as a Master of Economics. So that was about the age of 25. And then until the age of 40, I worked in corporate career. And then I started, not from one day to the other, as giving back, the return side. And the reason why I started in consultancy in philanthropy, because I always like to have nice talks. If you talk to people in philanthropy, they always try to improve the world. So I have a very easy job. I talk to people who try to improve the world. That's my daily job. And luckily, these are people who are willing to give, so they are called philanthropists. I will now describe, and I would like to ask Keith to put the second slide on, the world of philanthropy in a brief description. I'm not going to go in depth, I'm just giving you some highlights of the way I see it at this moment, what's happening. In philanthropy, there's three parties usually involved: the NGOs, non-governmental organizations, government, and the private sectors, be it foundations or donors. In general, in the last, say, 10 to 15 years, the government, this is a Dutch view, the government is taking a backseat, is less involved in the public life than it used to be. So there's more space for the private sector. In the US, if you take that as an example, there's a high level of commitment to philanthropy because there's very little government involvement. Maybe Mr. Trump might disagree, but this is the case. This is the truth. So what is happening now at this moment in the awareness of wealthy entrepreneurs, of philanthropists? the awareness of the social needs and awareness of their role has increased tremendously. And I put on the slide, it's certainly higher in COVID times. I'll come back to that in a minute. In the time of the financial crisis, 2008, 2009, we already noticed it in our company and in general that wealthy individuals are then thinking, oh my goodness, things are not going so well in society. This is the moment for me to step in to contribute. And they approach these philanthropists, entrepreneurial entrepreneurs in a more business-like way than some of the NGOs do. And this is a generalization which is dangerous to make, but I'm making it just to give you a picture. That's the main point I want to get across. Their main reason for being in philanthropy is they want to make a difference. Could you change it to the next slide, please, Keith? So if you then see what way these entrepreneurs run their activities, they run it as a business. So they look at KPIs, key performance indicators. They go from charity to social investment. They see it as an impact investing. They do that with passion because it's part of their wealth, which they use for the good cause. And they look at results. They want to measure results. And they're very willing, and this is an important point for us as UWC crowd to understand, they're very willing to talk to us, to you, about, so how do you want to achieve your goals? And they want to be taken along. They want to learn along the way. That's what I wrote down in the slide as well. And they'd like to take risks. They understand nothing goes automatically, will not be a success from day one. It will be something which you have to do with trial and error. And they would really like you to think along with them, and they are willing to help in running the organization. And they are so entrepreneurial that they sometimes even start their own foundation. If you remember, those of you who are lucky enough to listen to my dear friend Pedro Alonso in the first talk back in March or April, I think he gave the first speech in this series of the AC talks, which I think is a very good initiative. Well done, Andrea and Peter. That this is happening in a way, as Pedro then described, he gets a lot of money for his malaria research from Bill Gates. And Bill Gates more or less started his own venture. He started his own foundation, and he's doing a great deal of good also for Pedro and many other people working in the medical field. Please move to the next slide, Keith. So now comes something which is interesting, which is really changing in the, at least as I know, in the Western European world. There's a lot, and the US I know a bit about, there's the same story going on at this moment. There's a lot of generations passing on their wealth. So what is happening to the young generation? How are they getting involved? And how are the ideals of the parents brought over? How are they carried on to their children? Do they have the same ideals? Do they have the same ideas of how to change the world in a more positive way and how to be involved as a philanthropist? If you see how these young people, and I'm talking about people anywhere the age from 20 to 40, and in my company I deal with quite a few of these families now, it's very interesting that you often see the world more or less upside down, that children are educating their parents because they're very knowledgeable, they're very passionate, and they're very, very committed to make this world a better place. A lot of issues they worry about, which we all know from reading everyday's papers, is two main items which I'd like to take out and point out to you. One is sustainability, a greener world, the green challenge, the Green Deal for the European Commission, for instance, but also on plastic soup or whatever all of you have read a lot about and probably know far more than I do, but I'm just trying to highlight the two issues I hear back often. One is sustainability, a greener world. Second is the widening gap between the have and the have-nots. So there's a social divide happening in many countries, and it's not only the Netherlands. There's other things going on. There's polarization in the political field. I don't dare to even talk about the upcoming election in the US, but that's a typical example of polarization. And this happens even in the Netherlands. We have our coming elections in March, same story, polarization. It's not helping that, and these issues I'm just pointing out to you are things people worry about, and especially young people worry about. So in a family, if you talk to a family who's trying to do good and who has wealth to share with others, there is an interesting phenomena of how do they decide what they want to do with their philanthropic money. you have to sit down with them and look at what difference they want to make. And they would really like to professionalize the way of investing their philanthropic money. And like I said earlier, this goes with trial and error. You have to try, and you have to take them along your ideals, in this case, for instance, as United World College, of how to make those changes you're after, how to materialize them, how to execute them, how to make them successful. Final slide of this part of the presentation, please, Keith, number 5. So what I'm getting to is that it's important to make choices. It is very easy to say, oh, I want to improve everything. No, it's much better to focus on something you want to create impact in. And it's something of a real importance to do that in a professional way, but also to see in what will it affect in the future. And how will I find partners who want to do the same thing as I do? How can I scale up? How can I increase the organization where I'm investing my money in, with knowledge, with my network, with my money? So how can I, as an investor in a good cause, how can I be more effective? While making those choices and being focused, so the focus is very important, that you do focus and do you make choices. That also means you learn how to say no. As a donor, it's very important to know how to say no, because it's something you're not or less interested in, and you have made your choice for a certain goal, a certain focus. You evaluate along the way. By evaluating, like companies do often, you know how to improve, and where did you make mistakes, and how do you lessons learned, and how do you apply them, and how do you really improve your organization. Last but not least, it's important to, as a philanthropist, that the organizations you donate to are not fully dependent and only dependent on you. So you have to have an exit strategy. How are you getting out, and what are you going to do in order to be really successful in the long run without the organization being fully dependent on you perpetually. That's what they're after. The next slide, please, Keith. Thank you so much. Now, as I promised you in the announcement you all got, and while you all signed up, thank you once again for still being there. I see there's no dropout yet. That's nice. The case of United World College. I'm coming down to my passion. And that is something which really motivates me to talk to you about and to hear your views. So I'm really looking forward to the Q&A in a while, is how can we as United World Colleges improve and make use of these philanthropists who are obviously interested in education, they're obviously interested in worldly development, which I discussed a few about, the sustainability, the widening gap between the haves and have-nots, the polarization, whatever interests you, these people are interested in the ideals and values of United World Colleges. That's why we all, as alum, those in the audience who are alum, ever applied, because you want to improve the world, or you want to sit in the canoe like I did. And again, I didn't know so much about it in those days, but along the way, you learn a lot of things of how you can improve the world and how can we then involve these entrepreneurs. The main point is try and attract and be passionate about your own story, of course. If I talk to a lot of people, and Andrea is in the audience responsible for the fundraising at Atlantic College, it's very important to find and to understand the interest of the person you're talking to. So do your homework. So do involve families, do involve family offices. Do try and find out why they actually want to talk to you. And that is something very important, because often if you go on a sales pitch even for a school like a fantastic school like Atlantic College, you'll start telling all these fantastic stories without having listened to the other person. Why are they actually interested in talking to me? What are they after? They might have different goals which I can help them with, but it's not something which is in my brochures or on my website. So try and do your homework, try to find out what interests them and why they would actually want to talk to you. The fair share approach is something which is very important in any kind of fundraising, so also for United World Colleges, is that you have to try and find a moment in time and also a magnitude of what you're talking about, what you're after, where it fits the potential donor. Which means that if you are going to talk about education, like we did, for instance, in in the setting up of the new school in Maastricht about 13, 14 years ago. And then Peter Howe was the first headmaster there, who's now the great headmaster at Atlantic College. Now I think you're called head of college, Peter. I think you've been named something else. But anyway, in those days when we set up the new school in Maastricht, we started looking for how are we going to finance this. And in Holland, it's a very clear-cut case. If you talk about education, you go to the government. So what we had to do is first convince the national government and all the different political parties and all the civil servants. It was a 2-year long period of lobbying and of drafting our proposal in order to make it in such a way that the government said, "Ooh, this is a very good idea. In fact, it's almost stupid that we as a government have not invented this before. So yes, please." Then I go fast forward. United World Colleges Maastricht was accepted. And the reason why I say this in the fair share approach is that the first thing you should do is talk to the government. We did that and we managed, and that's why Peter knows very well why that school came about. Otherwise it would never have happened. So we had government support. Then you go to other segments. You go to foundations. You go to companies. You go to wealthy individuals, philanthropists. You go to something called, which you see on your slide, founding friends. It's something we invented here. It was literally 2 people back, I think it's 25 years ago, said, we really like this idea. One was a parent of 2 alum, and the other was someone who had no experience whatsoever with United World Colleges, but was willing to donate his money to education in the international world, in specifically the way United World College was formed. And his main motivation was, you do select on merit. Because you select on merit, I want to donate my money to you. So we found 2 founding friends, and that group is now a group of 12, and they each donate a huge amount. I know some of them are in the audience, a huge amount of time and a huge amount of money. They are our ambassadors. They know each other. They are highly committed. And I'm very honored that they are even in the audience today. And they have helped us a great deal along the way. This is the case in Holland. I'm giving you as an example of how UWC could use these founding friends, these people who are very close to you, and they are almost as good ambassadors as you are as an alum or as a headmaster of the school at that time. Then my final question to you and my final point to you is, so how do we increase the way alum are involved, and how do we manage to get more alum and to increase, in fact, the percentage of 15%, right? In that field of alum organizations, there's many examples, and Andrea know about, Peter knows, and others in the audience will know much more about it. There's many schools which are very effective. They have an amazing amount of back office. Look at the big American universities, and there's many examples you probably know about. So how does the United World College do that? I think what should happen is that almost like a rebirth, not as of today, 9th of October 2020, but a rebirth of commitment of the alum. I strongly believe that, like I said in my introduction, if you yourself say, I had a great time as an alum, and I really want to pass this possibility on to others, I think it's magic to give that chance to others as well. So why not try and group yourself in your national committees or in the fundraising for the specific schools, and try to make sure that it is a long-term commitment you're going to give. And it's not about the amount, I always say, it's not about the amount. It is about the fact that you actually are willing to give back to something you had such a good time at, and also where you yourself say, well, if I look back at my life, and I hope you do, at least this is now I'm talking for my own personal case, I really am very, very grateful that I ever got that chance. So if you are in any way close to that kind of reflection on your own life, and that doesn't matter about age, because I know very young people who just finished their United World College study and already contribute £5, €5 per month, per quarter, whatever. It's not about the amount, it's about the fact that you do give back. Other questions I sometimes get, and that is, so how do you make a difference in your private life? And how do you yourself commit yourself also to other goals like United World College? And I want to share with you an experience I have myself, which I'm starting to smile because I really enjoy it a lot. I started about 5 years ago as a volunteer in an old people's home here in Amsterdam. And that was because I was introduced, and I thought I should do something to give back in the society closer to my own home. And so what I do is every 2 to 3 weeks, I walk around in the park with an old lady, and sadly these people die. So 5 years ago I started, I'm already at number 4. And here you see a picture of a group gathering, which I did last year for my birthday. I turned 61, thank you so much. That's a long time ago that I was born. But this group of people are all old people's, living in an old people's home. They are every day looking out of a window here in Amsterdam. You think it's a rich country and it's affluent, etc. There's a lot of poverty in the social attention. These people are very, very bored. They really, really are lonely. It's lonely poverty. And what we did is we literally invited our friends who we later on that day had a dinner, and we said, the dinner and the drink start at 6, but come 3 hours before and come to that old people's home. We all brought them together in the park, and we had enough old people because they're all waiting there. And all we did is we had a great afternoon. And the response I got from all my friends is that they all said, wow, this is easy. These people are waiting for you. They're there every day. You can go whenever you want. So this is just an example of my private life where I think you can also give back. And it's not to boast myself of what I'm doing. I'm trying to explain to you how easy it is to do good. And in fact, how much of a win-win, because you have a great time. These people are very funny, very willing to talk to you because that's what they're after every day. And with this final example, I would like to finish my presentation and just reiterating to you that I really hope this talk stimulates you at least to think. It is not a fundraising talk, as I agreed with Peter and André, even though Peter and André would like me to make this a fundraising talk, but it is about what effects philanthropy can have and what chances United World College has if it makes good use of philanthropic world. Thank you so much for your attention, and I'm dying to get your questions.
Brilliant, thank you. Let us begin. Let me just open up the chat. Let's start with Vivina. Let me just unmute you. Hi, Vivina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Hi. Feel free to ask your question.
Oh, I thought you were about to read it. I actually even forgot what I had asked at the time. I think.
Vivina, you are my second year. You should be far more intelligent than I. You can remember everything.
Well, no, I'm your second year. I'm older and my memory is less than yours. So wrong assumptions.
Again.
So do you have the question in front of you?
Yeah, I can just read it for you.
Thank you.
Are you seeing also an evolution in the requirements that philanthropists ask of the recipients?
And I can explain the question.
Please do.
It's basically, philanthropy is under pressure because it's more and more difficult to find funding for philanthropic causes. Governments have less money, and the private sector, I believe, is shifting its interests in how they deploy philanthropic money. So as you advise philanthropists, are you noticing a change in what donors are asking from the recipients? Are they being more demanding in how the money is being spent? And do they want to see, I know I saw in your slides you had one line about monitoring and providing proof of the effectiveness of the money given. And so, because I don't know about other people on the call, but in the spirit of full transparency, what I find personally sometimes difficult in giving donations is that I think the money is being put to work in a non-efficient manner. And so that stops me and sort of makes me direct my philanthropic money to causes where I know is going to be used well and fully.
Yeah. I fully agree with your analysis, Vivina, that the requirements have obviously, or have changed. That's absolutely true. And I tried to explain a little bit in my talk about the description of the philanthropic world, is that they're asking, I even talked about KPIs, right, in my presentation. So it's much more business-like. So that's one answer to your question. And the other answer to your question is, yes, indeed, they want to, and that's what I meant with my point about they want to be taken along the learning process of the effectiveness of the donation, which means that if you set at the very beginning, when you manage to get a talk with a potential donor and describe with them on paper and in talking, and by having alum presenting them, in the case of United World College, right? Having alum presenting themselves to these potential donors. Look what kind of impact the investment of a scholarship will have on a personal life, and then you multiply that by 9,000 and you got all the 9,000 AC alum. Which means that if you describe those goals very clear at the beginning, you have a higher chance that the donor, first of all, will donate. Secondly, that the person feels taken seriously. So they know what you are willing, because willing to, want from them is the scholarship. They know that from the beginning. Don't talk too much about money, talk about the effects of, and I'll always remember what Colin Jenkins always said, it's not a donation for 2 years, it's a donation for a life. It's an investment in life. And that's, I strongly believe in that. So if you manage to get that across, then you have your potential donor for the United World College interest much more on the tip of their toes and really interested, because then they will remain committed. And one other thing, Vivina, I would, in the case of United World College, I think that's the easiest for today's talk, is make sure that you always keep them well informed. Because if you, like you said yourself, are critical for the good reasons about where your money is being spent, your philanthropic money, you as a donor should be kept informed in a professional way, in the way you want to be informed. So talk about that at the beginning. How would you like to get your, it should not be a bureaucratic system of every month a full report, because they know that's a waste of time for the people who are actually receiving the money, but take them step by step along with your, with the effect of the investment. It's as simple as that. Talk in their terms. It's something you know, because I know what you do in daily life, in your private, in your business life, sorry. That means that you know how this money is being spent. Take them along and work with them, along with them. Don't make it a one-way street. I'll tell you, give me the money and everything will be fine. Do it along the way and do it jointly. That would be my advice. Brilliant. Next question, please.
Thanks. I think we actually have a follow-on question from Drake. Let me just unmute. Hi, Drake.
Oh, it was just simply, Jan, you know so much and see so much in your other work adventures that, you know, we can put you a bit on the spot and just ask you, what are the kind of KPIs and type of impact proof that you are seeing in other philanthropic situations that you're not getting from AC as an alum?
In the so not in the educational field, right? You want a different example. Okay, so a very important one, I named two, which is very, very on top of the mind of a lot of people these days: sustainability and the widening gap of the have and have-nots. If I take the sustainability as an example, people really, for instance, a plastic soup. There's a big discussion, debate on how effective is the solution of trying to solve plastic soup. Should you clean the oceans? Should you go to the origin where the dirt comes from, the plastic waste comes from? What these people are after is, do you offer a structural solution? Do you offer something which is systemically correct and is making such a change that you do not come back 2 years later, the mountain has risen, there's more plastic again, please give me more money. That doesn't go. So you really have to make a business-like proposal, long-term. It's similar to what I explained to Verena of the investment has to be a long-term investment where along the way, and that's also something which is interesting by taking them along, because many of these people I'm talking about to you today are entrepreneurs. They know very well how often they make mistakes. They often have made many mistakes. So the thing you should never say, oh, if you give me the money, everything will be solved. No way. I'm going to do a learning path with you. Are you willing to take the risk with me? Are you going to help me with being more successful in my venture as becoming a successful foundation in solving the plastic issue, for instance? Does that give you a clear answer, Greek? Greek is happy. He's waving at me. He's happy.
No, I think it's more we need to learn for how to do this then, right? What stories do we really tell? Which KPIs do we really share? Because we don't share that much.
Exactly.
If this, otherwise we wouldn't be in this video. But if you have to go and show someone else, what are you actually showing? Apart from the individual students.
Very fair. Good point.
Brilliant. Thanks. Next up, we have Pelham. Let me just unmute. Hi, Pelham, can you hear us?
Mute.
I can see you
now, yeah. Good afternoon, Jan.
Hi, Pelham. Good to see you.
Hi. Jan, I'm interested, you started off talking about the alum contribution, sort of 15% of the people we're in touch with and so on, which I completely agree is very disappointing. But then you rapidly moved on to discussing philanthropists who are looking for sort of targeted, measurable points of impact and so on. It's obviously a spectrum, and Dreek made this very sensible comment that, you know, it's a Venn diagram. You've got some people who are alumni who are just making a small contribution because they went. You've got others who have no pre-existing connection with the college who are making large contributions, and then you've got some people in the middle who are in both categories. But I'm interested really in whether you have to have different approaches for your alumni from the approaches that you have for your philanthropists. Because it seems to me that they're contributing for different reasons and in different ways, and therefore need a different approach.
I couldn't agree more, Pelham, that different approaches, if I understand your question well, it's almost like I was explaining about the different segments. Every segment needs a different approach. And the moment you did your homework well, and you know, for instance, at the age group, right? You and I were there in the old days, and now let's look at the recent graduates. I think you should approach the recent graduates completely different from the way they should approach us. Of course, the whole story is still the same. It's a 2-year education, and there's a lot of other things, by the way, that UWC is very effective in short courses and all. But what you have to try and do is understand and almost put yourself in their feet of, and that can be in time, for instance, and that's why I said in-kind donations are also very effective and can be very committed, that you organize something in a country where alum will, for instance, and that's why I gave the example of the old people's home. There's many things you can do close to your house, close to your home. There's a lot of people who are looking at those kind of opportunities. And this happened in neighborhoods, at least here in Amsterdam, because of COVID. Suddenly people started being nice to each other. People started talking to each other and started putting on notices on the local grocery shop. If you need any help with getting your groceries, come and phone this number. It was amazing. It never happened before. So those kind of things are innovative in new startups of a local community becoming more kind to each other, more sociable to each other. And in that sense, if you then come back to your question of how can you segment then within the United World College constituency, I really think talk to them. So go to these reunions, and I know this happens. At the same time, I often hear the response from reunions, yeah, but they only talk about money and they're after my money again. Then we do something wrong. So there is something, first you have to share the commitment of why you want to really get involved in United World College as a goal, as an idealism, as a investment in time for people and what they then do with those 2-year fantastic education. And then you start talking to them and listen, how would you like to, so that's why I said, Pelham, don't talk about money, talk about what is your interest. What would you like to do yourself? And that is a much kinder way of asking for money than saying, it's very nice to meet you, but please give me the money and then I'm happy. So please try and talk to the people. That will be my advice. Can be through national committees, can be through the schools, can be online. Look at all of us now talking to each other. So there's many opportunities.
Okay.
Brilliant, thanks. Next up, we've got a question from Peter, actually. Let me just unmute. Hi, Peter.
Hello. Hello, dear Jan. Always a great pleasure to be in your company. And I've had the incredibly good fortune of working with you in both the Netherlands and here at AC, as you know. And one of my challenges, I guess, 15 years into the movement is we often try and homogenize UWC in a way in this being one thing, whereas in fact it's many diverse things. We have the 2-year colleges and the whole schools and the high schools and the 58-year-old colleges and the 5-year-old whole schools, etc. And one of the mantras I remember that you taught me very early on that I keep repeating is the donor is always right. So I guess my question is generally, do you think the best entry point for philanthropy in UWC is at the college level, or do you think it's at the global level? And how do we engage philanthropists who don't have a connection to UWC? Is it more the global cell or is it more the local cell?
My easy, and it doesn't help you much, answer would be both, but that's, I'm not getting away with that because I don't also believe that that's the right answer, but that's my first initial response, because I really believe, obviously you have to have a global positioning, which we do have, right? We do have a fantastic global positioning with 18 schools. I don't need to tell you because all of you know about it, and many know much more than I do. The local cell on the schools level is something which I think is really, really, am I understood? Because I don't see a yellow line. Keith, is everything going fine?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So the local level, so the actual pitch, if you say, of inviting people to your school, as Peter, you know, we did in Wales and in Maastricht and many other schools, is a perfect way to actually explain to the people. But it's often very difficult because you cannot get everyone to the school. It's costly. It's not doable with COVID at this time, so you have to invent new things. What often works, and that's why I was referring to these founding friends, if you create your own ambassadors, they do maybe even a better sales job than you, because they are explaining to others, I have now found this amazing institution called United World College. I see all this fantastic alum. I see what they do. I see where they get. I see where my money is well spent. Please think, because many of these people do talk to each other. They meet each other. So I would say, I never, ever left a fundraising talk about United World College without asking in the end, do you know anyone else I should go to? I never left a room without asking that question. There's always other people, they think, well, maybe you should talk to this one. So it's in that sense, it's almost hopefully a snowball effect, or it's an oil drop which becomes much bigger if you are yourself, of course, convinced about your story, and then you share and ask them to be your ambassador. That's what these founding friends are. They are our ambassadors. And there's many others who do that in a similar way. And I very much like what you just pointed out. I always say that there's many more good results, or I'm phrasing it the wrong way, but it's a lot more that UWC does than just the 2 years, right? It's the short courses, it's the amazing effect I've seen here in the Netherlands of UWC Experience, where we reach a lot of kids in a completely different environment than what we do as a pre-university 2-year course. These people have no chance that they ever get to that academic level, but they have a great, great benefit from the fact that United World College created something called and it's something which is a huge value to your organization. So it's something which was developed in the school by thinking with the school and by creating a new phenomenon called United World College Experience or United World College Short Courses. That is fantastic that you develop these things, that you develop new things in the academic world. You've had a huge influence, and you remember well, Peter, when we had a discussion with the Dutch Ministry of Education, our main point was not we are after this 2-year school. They were looking for our influence with other schools in the whole region of Southern Holland, because they found out that UWC was a perfect model, a good model, which Holland needed. And they literally put in the contract when we got the money, please do exchange teachers with other schools, do spread not only the word, but share the experience, and do interchange with other schools. So that's something which also is invaluable, which the school has to offer.
Brilliant. Next up, we actually have Milan. Let me unmute. Hi, Milan.
Yep. Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask a question that is a little bit broader. As the only one of your children you didn't convince into getting AC, it's not Atlantic College related. I think it's a twofold question. One, and to answer Annelie's question, why are there not more young people listening in? It's a Friday evening, so I think we have much better things to do, even in COVID-related times, than to listen to my father, even though I think it is moderately interesting what he's telling me so far. The question is, of your philosophy of life, you said, learn, earn, return. Wouldn't it be much better to do all three at the same time? Personally, asking the question, would you think it's more effective to first work at Shell, then at KLM, and then decide to do something back for your society? Or is it maybe better to work at different companies that do advocate for change at an earlier stage, but maybe you do not have the means to then give back at a later point in time? And following up on that question, to the people in this call, what would you recommend them to do tomorrow based on the insights that you gave today? The answer that you're not allowed to give is give more money to AC.
Keith, can you change the setup and Peter, never allow a child in any of these audience anymore? So for those of you who didn't get it, this is my eldest son, and I'm very happy that he was triggered by Annelies, my dear friend Annelies. I see her in the crowd. And first, I'm going to answer Annelies' question because I think she has a very fair point. Why are not more young people listening? That's something to take up for all of it, for Andrea, for Peter, and I'll happily think along, but I think that's a very fair comment because I noticed that in the former talks as well. Now coming back to the question of my son is, yes, do it jointly, learn, earn, return. And I'm going to, which is dangerous, certainly if I'm answering you, but I'm going to give you an answer with an example. The interesting talk I once had with a philanthropist was that he was about 80, he had 4 children, and his wealth was going to be distributed to the 4 children. And we had a discussion with the 4 children, and at one point, and these talks with the next generation, which we do a lot in our company, very interesting. Sometimes I feel I'm more like a family psychologist, but it's about how does the family feel that the father who made the money did exactly what Milan is saying. Did he do learn, earn, return at the same time? Or did he first make all the bucks, then said, oh my goodness, I've done some mistakes. I went some wrong sidetracks. I should have been more aware of my investment decisions earlier on in life, and I would have been far more effective, right? So the only thing I had tried, Milan, to explain in my presentation about the next generation, I think, and you are one of the examples, luckily, that your generation, and it doesn't make us any less responsible for doing the same thing, that you are very critical for asking these kind of questions. And what I'm trying to do is, and I hope United World College does that as well, and maybe people in the audience disagree or agree, that there's a very nice task for all of us to trigger these questions, to challenge people at the right moment. And there's many examples in business life where people are becoming, in their return phase, suddenly environment aware, social, the gap between have and have nots I talked about is suddenly aware of it, whereas they were aware of it before, but they were very busy making their money. And it's not as simple as that you can cut the 3 in, obviously as a baby you have a different field, you don't earn and you don't return yet, but in the further period of your life, I agree with you, it should be more combined. And the task for all of us, that's in that sense, I'm returning the question which Milan asked to all of us, are we challenging enough for our surroundings when we see people doing this? That's your influence on your day-to-day life with your own social groups, your own friends and your family. Good luck.
Brilliant, thanks. Next up, we have a question from Marco. Let me just unmute. Hi, Marco.
Thank you, Keith. Hello, Jan, and hello, everyone. I think in the old days, and many of us come from the old days, as it's been made evident, it was actually not that clear that you were expected at some point to give back, or at least I don't recall that from my old days at the school. The movement has instituted, as many of you know, for the last couple of years, something called the generational commitment. And that is that all new students at any UWC agree to give back whatever they can in time, talent, and treasure. Treasure, of course, standing for resources, back to the movement, so as to make this experience that many of us had also applicable to other young students as well. My question for you, Jan, a couple of questions. One, going forward, since I believe that for UWC to grow and sustain itself, we need to depend more and more on our alumni. That is, of course, more a long-term issue than a short-term one, but on the long term, we need to depend more on our alumni. So should we make the giving back less of a willing, voluntary thing and more of a compulsory one? And two, given your experience, should the movement consider aspects such as loans for studying at UWC, income share agreements for students of merit going to UWC, i.e., do you envisage any other ways in which we can bridge the financial gap that we face at many UWCs other than through philanthropy or through giving back from the alumni?
Very good question, Marco. Gracias. So what, first of all, and as you know, and as many people in the audience know, there is already quite a few initiatives, and they have been executed by quite a few national committees, quite a few schools, that any kind of almost contract with a 16-year-old, which is quite difficult, but that's answering the first part of your question. So you have been selected for 2 years, and you're 16-year-old, and you get a form in front of you, and it says, if ever in any possibility in my life, I will have a possibility to maybe gain a certain amount of money where I have some left over, and I'll donate it to United World College, right? Any lawyer can make up that, and any person can make up that kind of contract. They do exist. So I strongly believe in those kind of contracts and make it as flexible, and this is not by not nailing them down from the beginning, because you cannot ask a 16-year-old for a commitment for the rest of their life. You can ask an intentional commitment, asking them if ever you have this possibility. So I strongly believe in that, and there are quite a few national committees who use that kind of form. Your second, and then, so I'm also answering your question by saying, no, I don't believe that compulsory will be the way, because I honestly believe that for a 16-year-old, that's pretty difficult. What you could do is have that kind of open discussion with parents. It takes a lot of work, but because they are responsible for their children, they are the ones who agree with the application of a 16-year-old, and then you could involve. But then I'm afraid, and this is where I'm so doubtful about doing it very black and white, 100% compulsory, is that you will lose the potential applicants who we really want. We want everyone. As United World College, we want everyone to apply. We do not want people to feel a hurdle, financial hurdle, or a threshold, because to my belief, I always liked the idea of United World College so much because we do select on merit. We do offer scholarships. So unless you've come up with a solution that problem I'm now describing will be solved, I go further in your proposal. That's question number one. Question number two, about the loans, that becomes more feasible because loans is something to be done. You can say we spread it out over the coming 40 years. And again, there it's about the phrasing of lawyers can do that very well. But it is much more important, that was your very first comment, let's talk about giving back at the end of leavers dinner or whenever, or at least in the period. And I remember the discussion I had with Peter when he was in Maastricht, when it was difficult because he had day students. That goes in too much detail. But I find it very, very strange if you leave a place where you and I, Marco, have received a scholarship in those days, that you are not aware that it is, when you leave, money doesn't suddenly come from the heaven and falls down. It has to come from somewhere. So you have to realize, if I want other people to give the same possibility, then there's something which is called fundraising. It's not nice, but you have to do it in order to make the system workable and to keep it sustainable. Talking about sustainability. I hope this answered your question, Marco. Thank you for the questions.
Brilliant, thanks. We have another question from Cara. I think she may have dropped off. But the question is, while from an individual beneficiary perspective, the scholarship has a permanent impact, but from the organization, we need a constant flow of scholarships. How do we present the business case for this?
Say that again, because I didn't get the question.
Okay, sorry, one sec. While from an individual beneficiary perspective, a scholarship has a permanent impact. From the student's perspective, a scholarship has a permanent impact.
Yeah.
But from the college's perspective, we need a constant flow of scholarships. How would we present the business case for this to, I guess, prospective donors or philanthropists?
I'm still not very clear. It might be my thick mind that I don't, but if you talk about the individual case of giving money for a scholarship, that is, if that's a one-off, if that's a question, but the person who's asked the question is not in the audience anymore, right?
No, I believe she's left, actually.
Okay. So I'm a bit in doubt here, but if it's about one scholarship is for one child, yes, and then the whole school has to raise a lot of scholarship, yeah, that's in my view, but I may, again, misinterpret the question that I don't understand it well, is, of course, the whole school has to raise all these scholarships for all the students, and if you don't, then you have the problem which I described earlier. You're not a merit-only school anymore, so you have no distinction from other international schools. Okay. But I think I'm not reading the question well. That's my mistake.
Well, I think maybe we'll move on to, I think the last question for today from Tobias. Let me just unmute him.
Yes.
Hi, Tobias.
Hi. Hi. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you. We cannot see you, but we can hear you.
That's because, unfortunately, I'm joining from a computer with a camera.
Don't worry. We can hear you loud and clear. Thanks for joining.
My question is, do you think for the college that it's more effective to fundraise based on specific initiatives, like, for instance, refurbishing the RNLI hut, than to ask for general donations? Or is that something where you need to say, go for general donations with the alumni, and for more specific initiatives with external donors that have no connection with UWC yet?
Okay, thank you, Tobias. It's a very important question, and I understand from Keith, sadly, this is the last one. I thought we were just warming up. But the point that Peter earlier on made, the donor is always right, is my easy reply. And I'll elaborate. So what happens if you have to give a spectrum of, it's as if you walk into a supermarket and you're going to look for peanut butter. Dutch people do look a lot for peanut butter. So you have a few choices, right? And this one has nuts, this one doesn't. You have all these different choices. In that sense, the donor is always right. If you look for the certain type and you cannot find it, then you go to another shop, which would be a bad thing in our case. So I think the task of the fundraiser of United World College is to give as many tastes of peanut butter as you can imagine, so that the client will always be in your shop and come and choose your specific peanut butter, because it might change, and you have to be flexible, etc. So in your specific question, should you have a general donation for the alum and a more specific for the people who are not an alum, I don't believe in it, because I really believe that you can have a lot of interest shown by somebody and about something which you never have expected. Go for the unexpected. Go and use your creativity. Go and try to involve them and try to attract them with the idealism of the school. And then you sit down with a blank piece of paper and say, okay, you've seen now this school, I've told you about it, what would you think is a useful investment for your money? And then they come with a specific type of peanut butter, or they come with something which is not there yet, and you say, oh, maybe we will invent something like short courses along the way. And we will not do exactly what you want, because we have a goal, we have a philosophy, that's our education institution. We will not change from our mainstream, but we can really and are very willing to listen to you to help us become a better school. And by doing so, you already find a stronger commitment with the person in potential who's talking to you. Because, hey, this guy or this woman is listening to me. She's actually taking me serious. That doesn't happen very often with fundraising. They just want my money. No, no, no. We want your commitment and we want your interest. And if you do it that way, you'll find out, will it be a general goal? Will it be a specific goal? I know the headmasters and the boards of the schools are happy with either. So please go for any way to empty their pockets. Good luck.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Jan, and thank you to everyone that joined us today. We're, as I said at the start, we're really excited to relaunch this, and I think today's been great. I'm sure you've all enjoyed it. I've massively have too. Just to let everyone know, we'll be sharing across a feedback form to everyone that attended. If you have any sort of further questions or anything along those lines, do pop them back to us, and we can share them, Jan, and we can sort of share his responses with you. We also can share with you the slideshow, the slides, so you can have a look at that. But once again, thank you, Jan. Thank you to everyone that joined us today. Our next one is on the 22nd of October, and we'll be sharing the information and the details of that in the coming days. But yeah, please do let us know if you have any thoughts or questions, or if you're interested in speaking or want to follow up about anything, do let us know. But once again, thanks for joining us today. We loved having you, and Jan, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jan.
Bye-bye. You're most welcome.
Bye. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Jan.
Amen. Bye.
Gracias, Jan.
Adios, Marco.
Thanks, Jan.
De nada. Ciao, ciao.
Grazie, Jan. Grazie, Jan.
Adios. Ciao, ciao.
That was great.